would you give the highest mark? Probably not the one in the middle, perhaps. They didn't quite get things together with their title page. But I don't know if you agree, but I rather like the one on the top right. I think this is a rather sophisticated combination of text and image because you have the heat that's conveyed through the yellow and red. The text is on the yellow, which makes it more visible. It's very simple and it's very clear. But not only in the one on the top right, but also in the others, you'll see a difference in digital literacy between Year 10 and Year 12. Now, it's subtle, and believe me, as a researcher, it's very hard to kind of pin down. But we've got data on Year 8, Year 10, and Year 12. And it's very interesting to see how people's digital literacy evolves and develops. There's an aspect which is acculturation. As you get older, you seem to get a little bit more conservative. And you see all this playfulness with text and image at Year 8, but it gradually disappears as you become mature and sophisticated in Year 12. Interesting, interesting. But this is about production, it's about digital literacy in a PowerPoint slide. Now let's come back. I'm kind of moving out and back into language learning. These are our friends who are real leaders in this field, Pegram, Dudney and Hockley again. And out of all those 30-odd sub-literacies, they picked out a number and these are some suggestions for some tasks. So predictive literacies, gamification, robotic AI, hashtag, data, security, ethical and critical. And some task types. So those task types give you ideas for how you might explore these different literacies. So predictive literacy, you know, as soon as you start typing something in Google, it predicts what you're going to say, or what you're going to type in. Same with, mobile. So you can have a look at how those predictions work. You can check algorithms. I found it a very interesting difference between doing a Google search on Thailand and doing a Bing search on Thailand. And you get the top 10 in each case, but they're different. So helping your students understand how algorithms work. And these are the sorts of things you're doing here. A lot of it is to do with evaluation. The ethical one's a nice one too, developing netiquette guidelines. So actually asking your students, making it into a task. If you were to give guidelines for an email collaboration between Thailand and Spain or whatever, what sort of guidelines would you put in place? Going back to my algorithm of the top 10, if you were to put the top 10 hits for Thailand, what would you put? What do you think the top 10 should be? I mean, all of these things, all of these activities are getting you thinking. So I'm going back to my old anchor that I mentioned right at the beginning of evaluation and production. So some evaluation activities might be looking at your spelling and grammar checker. One of the most depressing experiences I had once was when I was videoing students and they were changing correct grammar to incorrect grammar on the basis of the grammar checker. Very depressing. Looking at speech recognition. Looking at accuracy and getting the students to look at errors. Evaluating language learning games, like Duolingo or something. Looking at those games. Getting the students involved. What are the strengths? What are the limitations? And of course, checking sources, which I think, in 1997 it was important. It's probably even more important now. And then the production activities, expansion and contraction. looking at a newspaper article and, okay, let's make it into a tweet, or vice versa. And things like, you're aware of these, PowerPoint slideshows, producing a student video clip, and there's a lot of work written in the area of project-based learning, which I think is really good. Creativity. This was something Joseph Ayoun mentioned a lot. And just for a bit of fun, TESOL Thailand was a great conference. It's true. I've had a wonderful time, and I'm sure you'd all agree. But it's really not very creative. Another way to say it, in a tweet, for example, would be, TESOL Thailand, what a terrific conference. Or, fab conference, or what? TESOL Thailand. Or, TESOL Thailand, Thailand TESOL. Either way, it was brilliant. What I'm trying to say here is that with the simplest things, you can be creative with language. Often, we get into this kind of routine. It's like the how are you, fine thanks routine. But of course, there are many ways in English that you can say how are you. And there are many ways that you can say fine thanks. And one way to do this is what I call creativity and constraint. In other words, with tweet language, you have a really strong limit of 140 characters, or in some cases 280, they're thinking of extending it. But these sorts of constraints can lead to a great deal of creativity in the classroom. And if you look at those examples for TESOL Thailand, you can look at things like grammatical structure, you can look at vocabulary extension, great, terrific, fab, formal and informal ways of saying things, and of course the creative use of language. And it even relates to things like identity, because the way that we use language is very much connected with our identity. Okay, so I'm moving to part 4 to try and bring some of these ideas together. I certainly don't have all the answers, but I hope I have some helpful suggestions. Part 4. Okay, priorities in the language class. The language first. I've been to a couple of fabulous talks, and they really emphasized that it's the language first. We live in a culture which is kind of seduced by technology. You can easily spend, and I've done it, a lot of time with Audacity or Movie Maker, spending time on the technology and really not spending any time at all, or very little, relatively, on the language. So the first thing I'd say is language first. And technology, digital literacies second. And integration is important. You need to think about how the language deforms or changes as it's used with a particular technology. And traditional print literacies are still very, very important. In first semester each year at my university, I teach a qualitative research methods course. And one of the assignments is to write traditional essays. And, some students do very well, but many of the students really are lacking in their ability to write an academic essay. So it's very important. I think one of the titles, actually, to one of the presentations here was "Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater." In other words, don't get so concerned with digital literacy that you forget for people's careers and jobs is still extremely important. Many students who want to go on and study at university, get work, they still need to write reports, they still need to write traditional text. All right. So, let's get practical. So much to do, so little time. all those subliteracies, you know, that huge list of subliteracies. And then there are other critical pre-existing factors, the context that you work in, the technological resources you have, access and reliability to technology, the students. What do they bring to the class? What are their levels of literacy and interest? The curriculum, the textbook assessment. All of these things are in the minds of teachers. Which makes me think of this. And I'm going to stand up, I think, just to stretch my legs. Often, you come to a conference and everything is wonderful. You have a good time, there's dancing and lovely food and lovely people. And then you go back home. And it's a different picture. And I've spoken to many of my students, I'm thinking